this closer here. Hi, everybody. This is 1,507 days since Richard was premeditatedly murdered on Fort Bliss. On Fort Bliss, after being retaliated against severely, continuously for whistleblowing, um, lots of fraud, of course, and child, the trafficking, all the criminal trafficking. You have to say criminal trafficking because when you're talking about child trafficking, child sex trafficking, human trafficking, it's not just a perfect thing. There's weapons involved, there's ammunition involved, there's drugs involved. It's criminal trafficking across the board. There's equipment, there's cash. There's money laundering going on and fraud going on, um, and the stakes are very high. And today, just an amazing day. Sunday, happy Sunday, everybody. And I wanted to talk about the verse today and how I don't even think it was preached on totally right today. Or you can say that God's word always has many different meanings. And so what I'm about to tell you is what it meant for us in our discussions last night. It was amazing. Of course, we use in our faith, in our Christian faith, we use the Book of Common Prayer, the 1928 Book of Common Prayer. So before we go to church, we absolutely can do morning prayer, and we can know exactly what the verses for the Sunday service are going to be. What the psalm is going to be, what the Old Testament reading is going to be, the New Testament reading, and the Gospel reading. Um, so we can discuss a little bit about the verses before we even go to church, before we even go to Sunday school. And so the verse that we had today was about you can't serve both God and man, and you just can't do it. And in the context of it, and I know most of you that are Christians have heard that verse, and it's preached on many, many different ways, but what it means to us and how it really impacted us is, wow, Richard must have been complaining over and over and over and over again. He didn't just put in one complaint. Okay, he was putting in whistleblower complaint after whistleblower complaint after whistleblower complaint. And we know that he was putting multiple whistleblowing complaints in with Child Protective Services. We know that Richard was putting in complaints to FBI Houston, to Washington, D.C. He was in communication with Washington, D.C., with CID, with the IG. He was in communication with 911. He multiple times. He was absolutely what we've been doing for 4 years, because one complaint doesn't cut it. And we're here to tell you that. Do not think that you can put in one complaint and that our agencies and organizations who have betrayed us, and we're getting support. Okay? We're getting support. But I want to tell you that there is it's so mucked up. I think that's the best way to put it. It's so mucked up, the system, that in order to get it moving, you have you have to put in multiple, multiple, multiple nonstop complaints until it finally moves the wheel and finally starts grinding uh, out the justice, out the righteousness. That and clearly God tells us that because He says the widow had to nag, right? Had to put in multiple complaints, multiple reports. Um, and Richard must have been doing that because he, um, the IG were all over the barracks because of him. We have, because of Halliday, right? We have reports from Brigadier General Stewart that the IG were all over the barracks because of Halliday. When we asked about that, CID Marlon Soto, dirty CID Marlon Soto, had to admit that it wasn't just Richard's barracks, it was all of Fort Bliss that was being audited. That was, uh, you know, um, dealing in these illegal weapons and more, right? Because it was being audited, and there's no weapons aren't any good unless they have ammunition. Okay, so ammunition's a very very big deal in this, and we know it's a big deal in the Walmart mass shooting with the brown tip bullets and the green tip bullets. And so we really were thinking about um, Richard's continuous pursuit to get help, to get help, and that's why they had to give him security. He was under a 24-hour security detail because he was such a big whistleblower. He was such a big whistleblower. He was continuously whistleblowing. Um, so that is because even Austin Hawke, who was a whistleblower, uh, uh, and he was brutally murdered. Over, I believe, 40 stab wounds, most of them all to his head, in the barracks. In the barracks. Um, just a month before, not even a month, before Richard was murdered. And so, yeah, by his former sergeant, that was Austin Hawke, by his former sergeant who was let into the building by the CQ, and I'm sure into his room because there was no forced entrance. And there was so much blood because not one person came to help him to his rescue. No one even called 911. No one called the military police. Even after the sergeant perpetrator left, nobody went to help Austin Hawke. Nobody called 911. Nobody called the MPs. Nobody. And it was brutal, y'all. I mean, it was so loud. Furniture, a mess, the door off the closet. I mean, he was a warrior fighting for his life. And no one, no one helped. None of his battle buddies. Nobody. And in Richard's case, he was reporting. And what happened to him? He was retaliated against by his own chain of command. He was retaliated against by Clem Coward unjustly, without any basis. And now we know he was even magistrated by a court that has become criminal, that has appointed individuals illegally, because that court has countywide jurisdiction, and anyone that sits on its bench has to be elected according to the Texas Constitution. You can't just put someone up on that bench. They have to be elected. They have to follow the law in order to establish the law, to enforce the law. And they're not. They are botching everything, and they are illegal, and they need to be arrested because they're impersonators. They're impersonating what should be judges, and they're not. And why is that? Well, because, you know, election, you might get someone in there that you don't want, that might not like criminal trafficking, might not like the child trafficking, might not like child pornography, might not like all the other economic advantages of criminal activity. So, so they left it. They left an illegal court, and every one of those individuals absolutely knew. They absolutely know, and they are absolutely ripe for blackmail. You do what we say, you rule what we say, you do on your bench what we say, or we will get rid of you. They have no legal standing to fight against blackmail. None. Because they are imposters, because they are criminals. And of course, the criminal network, that's what they want in order to get some of their guys that accidentally get hooked, get caught, right? Because over the border, sometimes a truck with a bunch of ammunition gets caught, and it's like, oh, we got to let that guy go. Let that guy go. Find some kind of problem there. Let that guy go. What about all of these child predators? Oh, you got to let them go. Let them go. And don't take their children away if it's a family predator. Don't take their family away. Don't take them out of their family. Just issue a mental health evaluation or something like that. Put them on drugs or something like that. Anyway, the court being an imposter court ripe for blackmail is so concerning. Because they handle just about 90% of the cases in El Paso County, including Richard's. Richard was unlawfully magistrated by this imposter court, unlawfully imprisoned by this imposter court. And nobody said anything. Nobody came to his rescue. Nope. Nobody says anything about these hundreds of thousands, y'all. I'm not making a mistake there. Hundreds of thousands of unaccompanied children up to 17 years old, children, unaccompanied, unaccounted for, and mostly dead. Nobody says anything. Even the DES, Thomas Kane, wanted to say something because it was so horrible. It was so horrible what was going on with them that even his guards weren't allowed to look in the windows of the emergency intake center. That was huge, covered acres, acres on Fort Bliss. And he wanted to say something, but he just couldn't say something. So Austin Hawk bled out in his barracks room because someone couldn't say anything. Couldn't say anything. Couldn't even call 911. Couldn't call MPs. Richard murdered for whistleblowing. No one can say anything. Richard was making so many reports and so many problems that the IG were all over the barracks because of Halliday. And what? Nobody can say anything. No one can no one has righteousness first and foremost. Enough to come forward. And when they do, and we've had, they're bullied, they're intimidated, the witnesses are retaliated against. Making it a huge decision and a huge challenge to become a witness in this case. And that's why the Dollar General store cashier is a huge hero. And of course, the whistleblower witness in Richard's case, that will become known. That will become known. But there are, I would say, hundreds of witnesses to Dallas Hart's character, who is a prime suspect, to Leilani Hart's character, who is also a prime suspect, to CID, dirty CID agent Tavita Nusa, who lost his badge, to his character and his connections. He's also a prime suspect. To Nidal Baim, who really, he was a witness, right? And his bravado got the best of him, and he became a witness. And he's so criminal. And he's the father-in-law of Bradford Bugado, and you'd think Bradford Bugado and his wives, the daughters, would put what's right before the criminal activity. Clearly engaged in. And so this, there is no doubt that there are so many more witnesses. No doubt. But they are silenced. Like Command Sergeant Major Shaky Jake. Oh, he was just shaking. He was shaking. And he said to me that he wanted to tell me something. He had to tell us something. And he just couldn't do it. I'm like, okay, let's go out to eat. Say it. Tell us about our son who murdered him on Fort Bliss under your watch, that you allowed young girls to be brought in with Clem Coward, the Major General, to be exploited on Fort Bliss during COVID. I mean, tell us. Tell us what you did. Tell us what you didn't do. Tell us what a failed leader you are. If he would have told us what a failed leader he is, instead of trying to puff himself up, this Jerry Jakovitz, who, let me tell you, uh, Team Fine Richard Halliday looks at him like dirt, like he's dirt, because he's Command Sergeant Major. And he had no guts, just shakes. Shaky Jake. Just the shakes. He knows what happened to Richard. And he does not have the courage to say it. And he'll use the excuse that he has to look after his family. He'll use the excuse that he has to look after his job, his money, his investments, his treasures, his wealth, his mammon. The mammon, his wealth. That's the excuse he'll use. Just like Paulin did. Just like so many. Because you can't serve both God and mammon. You can't do it. You cannot defend God when you're so concerned about your disability check. You can't defend what is right and what is good and truly establish justice. Because in the verse it says, my law word, right? My commandments, what I have commanded you to do. You cannot defend that. You can't defend the Constitution when you're so ripe to be compromised because you're looking for the next big truck or your paycheck or whatever, the certain status. You cannot serve both God and mammon. That's the whole point. If you want to be a true warrior for God, God says, don't worry about what you wear, what you're eating, about your next paycheck, about your truck, about your fancy Mercedes car. Please don't let it be a Mercedes EV. Please don't let it be an EV at all, right? Because you won't be insured. If they blow up, you can't put out the fire. We know all about that now. And then you hurt other people. It's just, they're so evil to even put us in that situation. And we don't own an EV, but, you get affected by it. Sorry, I digress there. The point is that if you're going to do the right thing, if you're really on God's side, when a time like this happens and it's your child, you have to, it's a huge decision. It's a huge decision. Are you going to put everything on the line to take on the establishment who is engaged? They're so compromised, they're so corrupted, they're so engaged in this criminal trafficking, and El Paso is suffering because of it. Juarez is suffering because of it. Because people aren't saying anything. They have the freedom of speech, but, I have a friend, and my friend said, that's the definition of being possessed by a demon. That's what it is. When you are so afraid to say anything because you might lose your job, you might lose your disability paycheck, um, society might not like you, right? If you cannot say what's right and good, I mean, I absolutely know that there has to be a taming of the tongue, right? That's what we can't just say everything, right, to anybody. We can't be defamatory and vile and vulgar. There are limits. But what I'm talking about is defending the law, defending the Constitution, defending standard operating procedures, defending the mission of the military, the United States military. That's what I'm talking about. And the mission of whatever agency and institution that you work for. And if you cannot say, wait a minute, we are abusing the taxpayers' money to run a criminal network that is killing people, that is killing children, that is profiting off of killing people, be it from the weapons, the ammunition, the child sex trafficking, the child pornography, the torturing, the fentanyl, whatever. If you can't become a whistleblower and get that whistleblower protection, the true whistleblower protection, then you're just serving mammon, self-service. So the whole mission, the creeds, everything, become a fraud. And that's really what we got out of the lesson today. The positive side is that God says, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and then all these other things will be granted unto thee. Right? So it's really an act of faith. You put it out on the line. You put it out on the line. That's what serving God is about. And so that whole verse has a whole new meaning for us. Whole new meaning. And it makes a lot more sense because it's always been one of those very difficult to explain, hard to understand sermon subjects, right? What do you mean I can't work and make money and enjoy my life and everything? Oh no, you can. You can become a billionaire. You can you can also be poor. You can just make a little money. But if that little money, like let's say you were cleaning pools for a criminal family and you saw the criminal activity in that family, but you couldn't say anything. You had to let it go because you didn't want to lose your pool cleaning job. That's serving mammon. Makes a lot of sense. And, if you're so afraid of it, more afraid of losing the money or the treasures, that you cannot defend God, that it will silence you, that it will gag you when it comes to defending righteousness, defending the Constitution, defending the mission of the military, defending what is good and true and right, defending children, um, and saying the truth. That's what this verse is all about. Then you have fallen into the pit, right? You've fallen into the pitfall of worshiping mammon. And that's what this verse is all about. And, it has such a great promise in it that we don't have to be afraid. We don't have to worry about what we eat, what we drink, what we wear. God knows that we need these things. But seek ye first the kingdom of God. That was the lesson for today, and it was amazing. Let me answer questions now. Oh, hi, Anicia. Thank you for your prayers and your love. And Francis, what court is this? It is the El Paso Criminal Law Magistrate Court. It's illegal. The individuals sitting on the court are criminals, are illegal. They have no authority, and yet they're hammering their gavel and making rulings on people's lives to imprison them, to take their children away, or to leave their children in. All kinds of rulings. Drug testing, or even ordering people to take drugs. All kinds of rulings. And of course, Richard was magistrated through this illegal court, and so was the Walmart mass shooting. We notified Joe Spencer. We had notified Joe Spencer of this. And you would think that Joe Spencer would look into how his client was magistrated, right? And just, because they would have to drop the case. They would have to totally drop the case. Thank God. Thank God. But, so much is being exposed in that needs to be criminally looked at, like the victims, like who the victims are connected to, what properties the victims are connected to, what type of bullets, the brown tip bullets, the green tip bullets, who were these dressed in black with the M4s in the mall. There's so much that need to be looked at, but Joe Spencer's client, that whole thing, it's all a money grab, you see, because no way could they get the death penalty right now. It's just such a mess. So it's just a money grab, more taxpayers' money being funneled in to keep it going, millions of dollars, y'all. And just to keep it, pretty, I think it's Thursday or whatever this week, they're supposed to have some kind of hearing. Um, and it's just a money grab because Joe Spencer's client has already been sentenced by the federal court to 1,000 years in prison. 1,000 years, okay, just about 1,000 years in the most secure prison in the United States, which is the Alcatraz of the Rockies in Colorado. So, this is all politics. This is all about the money grab. Um, but we notified when we were absolutely sure that what we're saying is right, and we're absolutely sure that the individuals sitting on the bench in the El Paso Criminal Law Magistrate Court are illegal and they're criminal because they're imposters. They're pretending to be officials, which is official oppression. Pretending to be a government official and making rulings on thousands of cases is official oppression and impersonation. It's so illegal. So, those are our thoughts. Of course, this live stream, we wanted to talk about the connection between Leilani Hart, Dallas Hart, James Hart, and Cris Martin. Cris Martin is a very interesting person in this case. He's absolutely criminal. He absolutely needs to be arrested. He has a history. We were told that, and I think it was by him and by Sammy, that uh, uh, when he was in the military, he was court-martialed. Um, and I'm not even going to mention it, because it's so bad. It's so bad. And I'm like, okay, why are you telling me this? But I guess, because we're investigating, right? We're investigating everybody. And Cris Martin is an academic. He's an academic. And they wanted to keep his identity covered. Because, he's he's, is he IG? Is he IG? Okay. Um, you know, so Cris Martin has, a very suspicious, uh, gosh, he would write me volumes, y'all. And and I have them. But at the time, and especially during the time of all the vile and vulgar messages and these, volumes of jibber jabber from him, psychology, right? Psychology. Um, you know, I did not read them. I'm looking at the volumes of them. Number one, uh, time is precious. I'm not going to sit there and when I know, even though I saved them, right? They come in handy now. But at the time, it was Absolutely, we knew it was a distraction. It was a psychological, asymmetric warfare tactic. Um, and so you just can't be manipulated through that. But the attempt was to manipulate. The attempt was to manipulate because he got very quickly, he turned the leaf. And we didn't do anything, nothing, to provoke any kind of anger. They blamed it on saying, oh, 44 four-star generals have betrayed us because they have. They absolutely have. This whole thing with Cheney, right? Cheney in the news right now. Cheney is connected to Michael Garrett. And Michael Garrett, Forcecom General, is very dirty in this. And for the Cheneys to be connected to Michael Garrett, who's so dirty in this. Y'all, he's so dirty. He needs to be arrested. He needs to be stripped of our beautiful uniforms. He cannot represent our country when he's a traitor. He cannot be funded. You know, when you wear that uniform, we fund them. We give them loads of money and loads of benefits. And the stars, you know, wearing a uniform, wearing those stars gives him authority, gives him power. We're empowering these criminals. He has to be stripped from the uniform and the stars and any kind of benefit. Not to be mean, not to take away from him, but to take away the power, the authority that those entrusted positions and symbols of position give him, so that he won't hurt anybody else and that he can't be called a loyal American. He's parading around like he's some kind of loyal American, like some hero, wearing our uniform and our stars, and he's not. He's a traitor. He's committed treason. And Cheney is connected with him, amongst others. And the same goes for Clem Coward, and the same goes for Donna Martin. Donna Martin, oh my gosh. She needs to be so stripped. And, you know, they get all this position. They have violated our trust. We entrusted everything to them, our country, our laws, our constitution, our most valuable assets. My son was entrusted to these people, and they violated him. They violated our trust, and they murdered him, and they violated his corpse. So much so that they can't even give us our son's remains. They can say Richard was murdered on Fort Bliss, because there's so much evidence that they can't say anything else. And if a soldier is murdered on Fort Bliss, where are his remains? Absolutely, they have CCTV footage. Absolutely, Thomas K. needs to be arrested. For one, for being a coward for being a coward, for worshiping Mammon more than what his duty was to God and country. And when you go into a position like that, when you are the director of emergency services for El Paso, for the security, for Fort Bliss, the director of emergency services for Fort Bliss, when you are in control of the security of Fort Bliss, you cannot worship Mammon. It's God and country. It's God and country. And this is what my dad was pounding into me, because I didn't understand this at the beginning, but he's like, there's no esprit de corps. There's no esprit de corps. And I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean, Dad? There's no, he's getting sicker and sicker, and I'm like, and finally it dawned on me. And then today, this is, I'm just a mom, just a wife, just a mom. My worries are like, okay, how am I going to feed my family today? What am I going to cook? What am I going to make? How am I going to organize my house to make my family's life more comfortable? Can I help babysit? Can I help, teach this? Can I help drive you there? Can I do, this is my life. So here I come in in front of 15 plus agencies with our priest, with the priest, and in front of, and a friend, and we come in front of 15 plus government agencies that are trained to serve God and country, and I'm told they can't do anything unless we bring them leads. Unless we bring them leads. We have to be investigators? Yep, you got to bring us leads. Really? And during that time, I'm like, really? How do you even do it? It was like they were absolutely obstructing justice, right? Because they were just laughing behind our back, because they already knew that Richard was never missing, that they had his remains, that his remains had been violated, his remains were dismembered. They had used their skills, their, probably with our taxpayers' money, to hide his remains as best as they could. And this is my thing. I'm not for what do you call it when you burn a body and it goes to ash? Anyway, it escapes me. I'm not for that. I don't want that for my son, and that's probably what they did to him. I've heard all kinds of stuff with acid and this and that, but they dismembered him, so maybe there's parts that they didn't do that to. I don't know what they did. This is the evidence points to dismemberment and terrible things. Cremated. It's come to me. It's just, some people are fine, but I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't want it. I don't like it. It's just, It's just us. And, you know, I don't like that thought for Richard, for any part of Richard. But they knew when they were telling us that we had to bring them leads that Richard was already dead. How do I know? Because of the Board of Inquiry, because of the insurance, because of all these reports, because of all of our evidence, because of all of our evidence. Clem Coward absolutely knew. Command Sergeant Major Shaky Jake absolutely knew. He knew, and I think that's what he wanted to tell us. Hey, your son's dead. And they didn't want another Guillen situation. And, you know, these people are, I'm sure, if they have any tinge of humanity, that they're being haunted. And I know Richard's haunting the worst of them. Look, I know my son. He's haunting the worst of them. Say, read these. Hi, Danielle. Thank you so much. Chris Martin is involved with the rogue response team. Absolutely. If he had any decency, you should see how he came to us. It was just like, you know, he he's an academic and he has psychology, and he comes to us and um, pours it on, and I'm like, okay, whatever, whatever. And they want to hide his identity and whatever, but he doesn't want to hide his identity to be with the criminal rogue group from the response team, right? From the original response team, to be with Leilani Hart and Dallas Hart and these criminals, these absolute criminals. He's such a criminal. He's absolutely a criminal. And, you know, he went digging out in the desert for part of our son. For a part of our son. And then it was hot. We didn't ask him to do it. I mean, DES Thomas Kane said he was a good meal for the coyotes. You have DHS. Really, it's DHS liaison to the Department of State during the investigation in the Juarez side. Jaime Corona. And he's gone, you know. He's gone because he said it. You know what? I hope God takes care of him because at least he said it. And Thomas Kane, you just can't get away with what he did. What he said, you just can't get. You, I don't know how you recover from that. I don't know. God knows. Um, it's bad because the choice was God or mammon. That's what the choice was for all of these law enforcement, all of these military. And you know, it only takes a few. And I want to report good news. The good news is we have enough. We have enough, and that's why we received the declaration of death. And, the time is just ticking. This is moving so fast. We're getting so many responses from our multiple state and federal active and ongoing investigations. Will we get Richard's remains? Will we get accountability? God says, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these things shall be granted unto thee. I don't know if that's a good translation, but it's good enough for me. And he knows what we need, and we need justice. And we need accountability. And he knows it. And it's not just for Richard, it's for hundreds of thousands of children, young people. I've been told through these bullies like Chris Martin, well, Richard wasn't a minor. What are you talking about? You're going to split hairs on that? His 1 month of 20-year-old and 21 years old, and that, when they unlawfully imprisoned him at 20 years old, that he was not a minor, which he was considered a minor because that's why they unlawfully imprisoned him. I mean, they split hairs and try to tie you up in knots. And, God is looking down and going, you can't do this to my young people, to my orphans. He doesn't take kindly to people that hurt unaccompanied children. Look up how he feels about orphans and our duty to orphans, unaccompanied children, and widows. It always follows with and widows. They're messing with fire. They think they're the big green machine, that they're the big establishment machine or whatever, but they are nothing compared to God and his power. And that's why we receive the declaration of death. And that's why we're receiving the support right now from the institutions, because there are some people in there that are amazing, that are brave, and they are defending God and country. And even the unjust judge will have to rule righteously when that kind of pressure, multiple, year after year of complaints and, really padding the file, they call it, padding the file, putting it all in writing, documenting, reporting, documenting the crime. That's so important. And what we realized is that Richard, to get that level of hatred that he got, he was padding the file. He was documenting. Yeah. He was a real whistleblower. FBI Houston, Child Protective Services, Washington, D.C., the Criminal Investigative Division, the Inspector General, and of course 911. He was reporting. Wasn't CCTV footage tampered with in the beginning? Absolutely, it was tampered with. And we have witnesses saying that it was tampered with. And main people that are suspect in tampering is Thomas Kane, the Director of Emergency Services, also Dallas Hart, also Jay Paulin, also I would say Clem Coward, also Tavita Nusa, also Leilani Hart, and there's some, you know, um, others, others, not so well known. So yeah, or when the evildoer said Richard can dig a great foxhole. Yeah, especially in that time period when Vanessa Guillen's remains were found in a foxhole. Um, Richard and family deserve justice. Yes, Richard Halliday and family as well as others. And, the whole point of this is there are lots of witnesses. Lots of witnesses. And we want to tell those witnesses that we have enough witnesses, that they need to have faith, that they need to come forward. Um, God knows what you need. And what we really need is courage. Courage to do what's right. Because we don't want anyone else to have to go through this. Oh, by the way, Mom, you have to be the investigator. Oh, by the way, uh, Father, you have to be the investigator. You have to be. You know how many things he signed his name to? It's just absolutely insane. Insane what they have made us go through. Um, Team Find Richard Halliday, we are absolutely putting everything on the line. We want our son's remains. We want those that did these evil crimes to be held accountable. We want our military cleaned up, like these generals that have been engaged in fraud, waste, and abuse and criminal activity huge criminal activity, to be held accountable. And because there is such a breach in trust, I'm hearing that from everyone. Not one person I talk to say they trust our institutions. That is devastating. The breach of trust, and the only way we're going to get the trust back is to help to hold these criminals, the criminals that are being engaged in imposter. What is it? They're imposters on the bench in the magistrate court, the usurper in the district attorney's office, the usurpers, okay, because John Briggs is a usurper, to also be held accountable. The imposter illegal as the chief medical examiner. Um, Absolutely. Veronica Escobar needs to be held accountable for her part in all of this. And there's more. And of course, the media. The media. And it's like they want to keep their criminal network going because they're serving mammon, right? Everything's going to be taken away from them. They're so stupid. Everything's going to be taken away from them. So, all right, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming on this Sunday and listening to the verse and our our thoughts on our faith today, and of course our thoughts on um, this. Well, Leilani Hart, the liar, and Chris Martin, also deceiver, psychological deceiver. Just remember, he's academic. He's dangerous. He's very dangerous. And then, of course, this court, this court, so dangerous. And there's no wonder why so much criminal activity is allowed to happen in the borderland. Thank you so much. God bless you. And we will be back tomorrow, God willing. Bye bye.